final leg of my trip. I'm currently in Astana. My hotel's just behind me, and I'm about to start the day. Now it's completely different here, and I'm not talking about the architecture or the massive amount of construction. I'm talking about the weather. So the last week and a half, I've been regularly hitting 35-40 degrees Celsius. Where I bought a load of vests just for more comfort, and I still sweat, but it was a lot more comfortable. However, out here, which I think is about 1,000 kilometers north of Almaty, it's actually cold. It's a bright sunny day. I can feel the warm heat, but there is a really cold wind. I'd actually had to go back up and change from a vest into a t-shirt. It's probably going to warm up a bit. It's only 9:15 now, but it is quite chilly. Even the hotel staff pointed it out to me. But it is actually more like the UK. So I'm guessing I've got to check what the temperature was on my phone. I guess it's sort of about 20-ish, something like that, with a wind chill factor. It's actually quite pleasant. It's going to be very bearable. I won't have to keep going out getting bottles of water. So, what's my plan for today? Well, in that direction is some of the landmarks that have made this city sort of quite well known. The Bayterek Tower, the new Parliament, there's the Opera House in that direction. So that's what I'm going to start today. Take it in this sort of city centre. I wasn't historic, because there's no history in this place at all. We're going to have a reach around that area, and yeah, just see what's on offer. It's a quite interesting looking city actually. It's hyper modern, but I wouldn't say it's like Dubai. Yeah, I think it's actually better than Dubai, what I can tell so far, but we'll see. So it's time to start the day. So behind me is the Bayterek Tower, which has become the symbol not just of Astana, the new capital city of Kazakhstan, but of modern Kazakhstan as a whole, about how this country has rapidly developed since its independence back in 1991. This represents a bit of Kazakh mythology. There was a tree called the Bayterek, which was the tree of life, which grew on the banks of the World River. I don't really know much about the mythology about that. And this is sort of like representing the new rebirth of the Kazakh nation and the Kazakh people. It stands at 97 meters tall, 97 referring to the year 1997, when Astana was officially declared the new capital of Kazakhstan. And of course, being 97 meters, it's 68 meters shorter than the Spinnaker in Portsmouth. So get in there. So it actually says it should be open now, unless it's changed since the last edition of this Brad guidebook. So I'm going to go up there. There is a sort of globe inside, which has got the handprint of the first president, and it plays the national anthem when you touch it or something like that. So I'm going to go up there. Obviously the views of the city won't be great because it's kind of overshadowed by quite a few other sort of office buildings. But yeah, we're going to go and check it out right now. the Bayterek Tower. This is actually the second level on the tower. The lift goes one floor below me, and then you walk upstairs, and there's another level, which is where the handprint thing is. As you can see, this is the view of Astana. And what you might notice if you travelled is that this isn't quite like a lot of the planned cities you get around the world. You can say Washington DC, where it's all very flat and the skyline really isn't much other than the Dome of Congress or the Washington Monument. I think Canberra in Australia is a very similar place. Brazil, I think it's also quite large. This actually kind of looks like an old, long-developed city. You know, it's got mid-rises and high-rises, sort of patchwork of development around. Obviously, everything's new, and you can tell it's all new. There is an old town area I'm going to make my way to at some point. But yeah, it's actually quite an interesting looking place. It doesn't feel like well, it sort of does feel artificial, but it doesn't as well, just because of where the skyline's built. And also in terms of these places, some of these sort of planned places where they got the wide boulevards to the roads because they just build them for cars, so that they can feel a bit sterile. But actually, this does feel busy. Walking to this area, and I'd say all the buses were full. So, and even last night, people were just walking around from bars and restaurants. So it's not nearly as exciting and buzzing as Almaty is, but it's still quite good. So as planned cities go, this is actually not too bad. So, but I only just started for a few hours. There's a cafe downstairs. I'm going to take a little sit down and plan my next move. But I'm going to go upstairs in a minute, put my hand on the president's, or the former president's, handprint. Well, that was the Bayterek Tower, a very interesting building actually. Got my hand in the handprint of President Nazarbayev. Heard a bit of the national anthem playing, the proper national anthem, not the one that was played years ago, which was on some foreign trip the Kazakh president went on when they did the national anthem. So they played the Borat one. Now I got the proper one. So this tower is, let's say it's only 97 meters tall, but it is an interesting piece of architecture. It's a very unique piece of architecture. I'm really glad that they went down that route of doing something that's unique rather than just the usual stuff like having European cities where they have these transmitter towers, which is generally the same kind of shape, you know, a tall conical shape going up to a circular base and then a spire on top, or an antenna on top I should say, with a revolving restaurant. But when you're actually up there, as you probably noticed, is that even though it's quite short, only 97 meters tall, because of the way that the city's been laid out around it, it actually kind of feels taller. You do get a really good view of the city. Most of the city isn't actually high-rise. This is more mid-rise or high mid-rise, with a few tall buildings in little pockets. So you do actually get a bit of a view. You do get to see the skyline quite well. It's not all clustered around like you would get in, say, Hong Kong or kind of New York, unless you're really high up in New York, or sort of even where else was it? Tokyo last year. It's actually really good views. There's a nice cafe up there, and yeah, it's actually very interesting. I'm really glad I got that one off. So what I'm going to do now is come up to lunch. I'm going to head to the National Museum, which I think is in that direction. It's actually really pleasant. My phone says it's 18 degrees. I think it's actually hotter than that, but there's a wind chill. There's a really nice cooling breeze. So that's why I really do need these t-shirts. I thought I was going to get a bit too warm for the t-shirt earlier, but actually the wind is still coming through and it feels very nice. It's very pleasant. It's very bearable. I'm not dehydrated yet, so I don't need to desperately run to a shop to get some water. So I'm going to head down to the National Museum, but it's roughly in that direction, and I'm going to see more about the history of Kazakhstan. Well, that's the National Museum of Kazakhstan. A very interesting museum, very impressive building actually. A lot of great artifacts covering subjects throughout the history of the country, not just Kazakhstan, but the whole Turkic region around here. A little bit of a warren at some places where there wasn't an obvious route to go through, and the sort of areas are right next to each other. But if you went to one, you couldn't just go to the next one through another door. You had to sort of go all the way around through other bits and come back to where you came from. So it was a little bit difficult one to navigate, but it was still worth it for, what was it, £3, something like that, £3 or £4, and a £3 entry fee. So I'm gonna explore this area around here. There's, I think it's like the Palace of Reconciliation, it's like the pyramid structure. There's an incredibly large mosque over there. A couple of other interesting bits of architecture. I'm gonna have a little explore around here and then meander way back towards the hotel and find somewhere to get some dinner tonight, although my stomach's feeling a bit from the horse sausage. So I don't think that was a mistake. I still don't regret it, but it was yeah, interesting. So yeah, just gonna have a little wander around now, and then I'm gonna head back to the hotel. Okay, I've just come out of the Second Sayfulin Museum here in the sort of the northern side of Astana, kind of the older part of the town. It's quite an interesting little museum in a sort of an old-fashioned log cabin, dedicated to a very important Kazakh writer from the Soviet period, who was quite high up in the party as well. So it's definitely worth going to. It's very small, so if you're staying in the centre, it's probably best to get a taxi to come here because it's an hour or so walk to get here. But I actually had another interesting little experience. I did come here to have a look at the museum of the first president of Kazakhstan. It turned out that I'd already been there. It's actually part of an exhibition in the National Museum, and this building is actually, this location is closed, so another thing that needs to be updated. I could have looked on Google Maps, before actually doing some research. But when I was having a look around, I stopped off at this little coffee place on New Square, and the guy running was very helpful. He actually, when I asked him about where is this museum, he actually closed his little shop, and it was only a tiny little unit, it's more like a hut. He actually closed it and he walked around with me to find the place. Obviously we couldn't find it, so he came back. I'd already bought some water and a latte from him. When we got back, he gave me some green tea, a couple of snacks, we spent, you know, about half an hour or so chatting, getting to know each other, and he was just very hospitable. His name was Daniar, and yeah, he was just a really nice guy. And this is something I found in this area. It's hospitality. Sometimes it's little things, like people just saying hello to you, obviously recognising that you're foreign, and other times it's literally super helpful, you know, things like that, you know, giving me a free green tea. So it was really pleasant. I was really, really, you know, humbled by that. Something we should be doing a lot more in the UK. So it's coming up to midday. I am gonna go and get some food. There's actually a shopping mall just down the road, so I might cheat and get something really convenient. And then I'm gonna head, I think it's down that road, or it's the next road, I forget. It's on the map, it's not too far. And there is another museum, a military history museum. I'm gonna see if I can get to. And that'll take me sort of back down towards the city centre, or the new city centre, I should say. So some food and then another long walk. As you can see, I'm covered up in a nice little raincoat because the last few hours it's been absolutely miserable here. So my holiday is ending cold, wet and windy. It's actually quite lucky. I was in a restaurant having lunch, and when the downpour started, and eventually I had to finish up, and couldn't just stay in there all the time, excuse me, couldn't just stay in the restaurant for the whole afternoon, had to get out. But luckily they sold raincoats for it's like 1,000 or something like that. I think it's just over £1, like £1.50 or something like that, and that's actually pretty good. As the last one they had, just the right size. Right, it covers my bags, so they're all nice and dry. So yeah, it's only my shorts that are getting a bit soaked, that's fine. So I've just been to the Museum of Military History. That's quite interesting. I'm taking a long walk back to my hotel. Yeah, you probably see the clouds there. Pretty ominous, pretty miserable. Yeah, so I'm still not sure what to do the next few hours, so I'll probably have to get something to eat, obviously, and get an early night. I'll probably have to be up about 2 o'clock, but I'll have a word with the hotel staff, well, when I need to get a taxi, because I can't, I don't know if I said this already, but I tried to check in online, and unfortunately my airline doesn't offer online check-in, or at least from this location. It's Pegasus Airlines, so I've got to check in at the airport. So I've looked to get to the airport about 3 o'clock, so I'll figure out when I need to get a taxi. But yeah, the holiday is ending the exact opposite of how it started, which was burning hot and humid in Dushanbe. Now it's just cold, wet and windy in Astana. Kind of very British really. So I'm gonna find my way back to my hotel, dry up a bit, maybe quickly pop out, get some food, then have a few hours sleep before heading back to the airport in the morning. So yeah, I'll speak to you later. So that's it. That's the end of my trip. I'm currently at Nur-Sultan Nazarbayev Airport, named after the first president, of course. Terminal 2. I had a little bit of an issue. For some reason, my phone alarm was set to next Friday rather than today. I don't know how that happened, but it didn't actually go off. I was meant to wake up at 2 o'clock, woke up at like 2:50. So it wasn't the end of the world. It just meant I was a little bit later than I planned to be at the airport. But thankfully it was so early that, again, the taxi was incredibly, it was a lot quicker than I thought. I thought it was going to be like 35 minutes. It was more like 20 minutes actually, just because the roads are so straight and so wide, and at this time of the morning there's no traffic. So I've got plenty of time, and check-in was a big queue anyway, so there's probably still people checking in now. I've already got through. So that's actually all fine, really. And so now I'm just having some coffee and I'm just waiting for my flight to Istanbul. For some weird reason, I've got 2 seats on this plane, 20 Alpha and 20 Bravo. I don't know how, because I've only booked 1 seat. And also, it seems that I thought I knew I'd had 2 seats, but for some reason I've got a self-transfer to Istanbul, even though it's on the same airline. I don't know why. In that case, it's just one of those things. To hell with it. I just have to self-check. I've got about 4 hours at Istanbul, so I don't need to worry. But yeah, 2 weeks are all done, and I'm heading back home. It's been a really, really great holiday. It's been very interesting. Such an interesting, unique part of the world. Not one that people really come to. When I get home, I'll make a video. I'll sort of talk about the whole thing before I actually start posting these videos. Hopefully you've already seen my little preview that I posted. But on the whole, this was a really, really good holiday. Really cheap part of the world. I spent way less money than I thought I would, and just lots of really friendly people, lots of really helpful people, lots of really genuinely nice people. Obviously, there's some parts of the world, like in the US, where there are some, lots of helpful, really nice people, but sometimes with the service people give, it almost feels like they're coming off reading a script on being nice, whereas here it is genuine. This is definitely part of the world that's worth coming to, taking a risk, taking a punt. Obviously there are a few things I'd do differently, like I'd make sure I get a local SIM. That's probably the most important thing I'd actually do. A couple of other things, just spending a little bit more money on getting places closer, although part of the reason for that in Almaty was because I'd had a last second cancellation on my hostel. But little things like that aren't too much of an issue. So excuse me, my arm's hurting. So I'm going to finish this coffee, have a little wander around, maybe kind of get rid of some of my currency, and I'm then going to be boarding the plane to Istanbul. I think it's about a 5 or 6 hour flight to Istanbul, so hopefully there's good entertainment. If not, I've got my book. And yeah, it's time to go home. See you soon.
Wait. Pardon.